Hi, my name's Nick, and I live on a 102-year-old boat. This year, I'm going to take it as far north as I can. Today, I'm going to talk to you about breaking my power takeoff clutch only 2 weeks before the start of my journey, the options that I had to fix it, and then a fun and spontaneous trip that I took to Port Townsend. So my power takeoff clutch is about 80 years old, and when it's engaged, it drives a hydraulic pump that in turn drives the hydraulic motor on the windlass, which is used to pull the anchor up when I'm at sea. In order to fix it, I either need to find a replacement part or fix the existing part. And the challenge I have, like many things on this boat, is there's no replacement part because they stopped making it years ago, or they're just very difficult to find. And so I have half the country, it seems, helping me try to find this part. It's looking more and more like what the option there is to order actually a similar part that's smaller that we then have to bore out the inside of the bearing to fit my shaft. So not only is it expensive to buy the new part, but also I need to do a lot of work to modify it to fit my application. The second option I have is to fix the existing part, and I took that option because it was cheaper, it reused the existing part, and I could get it done with Barry Stevens, who's a machinist that can fix anything. And so he's up in Port Townsend, and let me show you the fun and spontaneous adventure that I went on to get there. This is my friend Jimmy. He also lives on an old boat, and today he's going to be driving me up to Port Townsend in his 1940 Chevy. What's fun is we'll be joining one of those Saturday afternoon cruises with a whole bunch of other classic cars. Cheers to roll down windows. Back on my way up to Port Townsend to pick up the bearing for the power takeoff clutch. A cool thing about hanging out on old boats, you get to meet a lot of really cool people and a lot of really old souls. And there's not a cooler person or an older soul than my friend here, Jimmy.
Maybe an older soul.
Maybe an older soul.
1940 Chevy that my grandfather bought when he was a senior in high school. It was his very first car. He bought for $250. Of course, when he bought it, it was used. It was just an old car. And through just a series of events, happened to stay in the family because he later upgraded to a 1950 Chevy, and about that time, his uncle's truck broke down, so his uncle needed a vehicle, so the car went over to his uncle. His uncle had a trap line in Colorado and used the car like a Jeep on the trap line. And then after a while, the car came back to my granddad and went to his mother, and then it came back to him again. And I know my aunt drove the car when she was in high school, and at a certain point, my granddad said, well, gosh, I guess it's kind of a classic. I suppose I should keep it. I asked him, I said, Granddad, can I drive the old Chevy? And he kind of looked for a second, and he said, well, if you fix the brakes, I don't see why not. So I got to work and fix the brakes, and I've been driving the car ever since. From Colorado to Alaska and back twice. Drove it from Colorado to Seattle. I like these cars original because you get to experience what it was like in 1940, and it's not as easy as it is today. It's more of an experience to drive, but I like it that way, and it's fun to be able to share it. So a friend of mine also is named Jimmy and is also into classic cars, puts on what he calls the poker run every year, and gets a group of folks together with classic cars and drives from Seattle up to Port Townsend. James runs the Ballard Terminal Railroad, which is the last little short line railroad in Ballard. It's an old line that's just hanging on. You can pull the throttle out while you're driving and hold the gas pedal down. Poor man's cruise control, they used to call it. Problem is, a modern cruise control, you hit the brake and it stops the cruise control. It doesn't do that on this.
It was pretty cool to see all the old cars all together in the ferry. Everyone was having a great time, and people were walking through the ferry coming to check us out. After the ferry, we took a drive up towards Port Townsend, making a quick pit stop at the tip of Marrowstone Island in the state park looking over Port Townsend Bay. Jimmy even let me get to drive for a bit. That's great.
If
you've ever been to Barry's shop, I just think it's awesome. There's all kinds of cool trinkets and collectibles, and one thing you know is the music is always going. So here you can see the damage caused by the key continuously spinning inside the bearing, eventually bearing out that groove. The clutch assembly itself was quite dirty, so I did a little cleaning just to make it easier to work on. So here's the part all cleaned up and reassembled. To show you what was done, Barry brazed filling through the keyway that was worn out and then bore a new keyway on the opposite side. He was also able to clean up the wear and tear that was located on these end pins here. So ultimately we chose to repair the existing part for a couple reasons. One, it seemed to be actually be the fastest, easiest, and most cost-effective thing to do. We're gonna go ahead and install a new key, put this bearing on the key. It should last me at least through the summer. Hopefully this works. Here's the old key. You can see how chewed up it was, rubbing on the inside of the bearing. Here's the new key. Same size, and the bearing slides back and forth as the throwout bearing engages and disengages the clutch. So here's the problem, is that the key is going to be mounted into here. As that bearing goes in and out of the clutch, it's going to be sliding on this key, which right now is prone to come in and out. And so what we don't want is for it to grab the key and pull it out of the shaft. To fix this, we're going to put a little bit of adhesive on the shaft side of the key, let that sit for 24 hours, and then tomorrow see if the bearing flows freely over the key without moving it. All right, we'll check back tomorrow to see if it worked. It's looking pretty good, as you can see here. Thanks for watching, and if you want to follow me along as I kick off my trip on Friday, please subscribe. I will be posting videos of my entire trip north, all the people I meet, the wildlife I see, and any sort of adventures that we hope don't happen, but I'll bring you along on my journeys. With that, thank you, and I'll see you next time.